Last question. What do you think happens with Israel? I mean, and do you think that requires a military solution in order to stop the genocide that's taking place? What do you think? Just give me your thoughts on this. I'm very curious because when you talk to different people, some people would say there's going to be a reckoning. Some people would say there's not going to be a reckoning. Some people would say there will be one state at some point. Some people would say, no, Israel, there will be no consequences for the behavior that they've taken in regards to murdering all of these people and starving these people, especially with the US support behind it. How do you think this ultimately turns out from your point of view? And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm just curious. You've studied this stuff for years.
Well, of course, it's impossible to predict the future, but I don't think that the Israeli regime will survive. I I think it will collapse.
Now, why?
I'm not saying it will, I don't believe it. I'm not saying it's going to collapse in 1 month or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. But the longer this genocide lasts, the longer this Holocaust lasts, the worse it's going to get for the regime. And now that they want to take the Gaza Strip, they're only going to slaughter more people.
Right.
And after 22 months of genocide, and it's been 22 months now, so we're moving into the 23rd month. After 22 months, Jamal, I mean, you were in the United States 22 months ago. Could you have ever imagined public opinion in the United States shifting the way it has when you used to work on your radio show? Did
No.
you ever imagine that the United States, which is the most propagandized country in the world by far, did you think that sentiments, even though social media is working to help the Israeli regime, mass media is working to help the regime, the state has helped doing what it can, but public opinion has shifted. And outside of the United States, you know quite well what's going on.
Yes.
We saw huge protests in Japan. We saw huge protests in Australia. We see so across the world, the regime is being is despised, and that has enormous consequences. And if every day that this continues, when you have people being just slaughtered on a daily basis for trying to get food, and then simultaneously you have these apologists who are trying to pretend that there's no hunger and no starvation, they are getting discredited further. These Western officials and journalists on CNN or Fox News and elsewhere who are making, or the Wall Street Journal or the BBC, those who've been trying to claim that there's no starvation, they're only getting discredited further. So the West is weakening, and the West is weakening because of a declining economy. I mean, Europe. Look at Europe. They've destroyed their economy. They've shut the door to Russia. Then they refused to do a deal with Iran because of the United States. When we had those nuclear negotiations, I was telling European elites to do a deal so you can invest in Iranian oil and gas and make up for some of the losses due to your sanctions on Russia. But when the United States failed to take that last step, I said, winter is coming. It's going to get bad for you. And it's been downhill for Europe ever since, for 3.5 years. And now they do this deal. Well, it's not a deal, it's a capitulation with Trump. And they have nothing. So, and as Europe declines, is that good for Israel or bad for Israel? It's bad for Israel because the Israeli regime is not an independent regime.
Right.
It's completely dependent. It's no superpower. It's no power. It's just a tiny stolen piece of land where Europe and North America and the West is pumping in weapons and money and technology so that they can continue the slaughter. Well, the Western economies are going downhill. They're losing wars. They've created trade wars. Not just Trump, but the Europeans are just as foolish. They went and insulted the Chinese. They've closed the door to Iran. They've closed the door to Russia. Now they're closing the door to the Chinese. None of this is good for Israel. So the West, which backs the Israeli regime, is declining. Its fortune, its support among the public and the West is disappearing. it's hated across the board. And you do see clips of Israeli tourists, traveling and people, confronting them. I don't see this regime as lasting, and I don't see these governments in the region that have been treasonous in continuing to do business and with Israeli regime as being able to last forever, because the outrage in the region has just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
This is not a sustainable situation. We already see a lot of unrest in Egypt. And while the Turkish government is trying to push activists towards making protests against the Egyptians, but they too are complicit. And then there's Jordan, and then there's the Emirates, and then there's Morocco. But these governments or regimes that are in bed with the United States, they're being weakened by this continued genocide. So every day that this genocide continues, and then every day that the United States and the West continues to wage some form of war in some shape or form, whether economic or military war across the world, the fortunes of the West and the fortunes of the Israeli regime continue to decline. I just don't see this as sustainable. They will continue to slaughter women and children. Things will get worse in Gaza. They may attack Lebanon, because right now there's a conspiracy against the resistance in Lebanon. The Saudis are pushing, and the Americans are pushing the government to
civil war,
to confront the resistance and take their arms in order to make Lebanon weak, because the Lebanese armed forces can never stand up to the Israelis. And then Erdogan's ISIS and Al Qaeda troops in Syria have already been used to attack Lebanon a number of times and threaten the resistance. So you see this large collaboration, this conspiracy right now taking place, where these different players under the authority of the United States are trying to target the resistance. So there are challenges, and there may be war, and the genocide and Holocaust will continue. But I just think that this downhill path that the Israeli regime is taking in the eyes of the world, and the weakening of the West in general, this is going to have consequences. And of course, as you know, Israel is deeply divided right now, not because half of the country is against genocide. No, overwhelmingly they support this extermination of Palestinians, but according to polls. But because this country is deeply divided between two camps. So there are many things taking place simultaneously. None of it is good news for the Israeli regime.
Professor Marandi, always appreciate you, man. Always appreciate you. One day I need to get to Iran. Hopefully we can get coffee or something to that effect.
Definitely.
Thank you for this. Professor Marandi.
Always a pleasure.
Professor Mohammad Marandi. He is professor of English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. Well, wait, is that still correct? Do I still have that correct?
Yes, as far as I know, I have not been expelled from the university. So okay. As far as I know, I still work. Unless you have news that I don't.
I do not have any additional news.
If you have any inside information, please let me know.
Thank you for this. You have a good day, okay? Be safe.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right.
Thank you.
I always appreciate these conversations with Professor Marandi. Yeah, I always appreciate those conversations. All right. We have come to the end. We have come to the end. Let me go to chats to do these first before we close it. Yes, he was calling me a monkey. Esperak. Racist people be racist. He's really, I suppose. Shini, what is this? Sheena Nolan. Thank you, Sheena Nolan. You have my deepest appreciation. This is Bansa W. Bandi, I believe that is. Warwick is the man. Warwick was good this morning. Warwick was very good this morning. He gave an economic breakdown. That was fantastic. What is this? Good morning from Richmond, Virginia. Sir Bikes a lot. How are you? You're an RVA. You're an RVA. Badass. Badass. I will be going back there someday with the point where this one or two things happen. Either my body gives out or I just get tired of being a digital nomad. Either way, I will be back in Richmond at some point, even if it's just my cold, dead corpse. Um, Guys, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you that contribute. You have my deepest appreciation. You allow the show to be what the show is and allow the show to keep ticking along. Um, you can support the content, PayPal, Patreon, Super Chat, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon. I think it's a Patreon. PayPal is one of the other ones. All of those things help, and you have my appreciation for it. I'm going to call this a day. You all have a fantastic evening, night, wherever you are. You be safe. And have a good one. Be safe, guys.